So, hey guys, Chauzu here. So in this video I'm going to recommend 10 support rare recruit that are worth pulling for. There are more good ones than these, but I decided to narrow it down to 10 I use a lot myself and I think are really good. So yes, let's see how many support rare recruits there are all together. And as you can see, it is quite a collection now. Most of the old ones are not as good, even if there are exceptions, of course. In the end, you need to actually read what units does. But stuff like the Machino, for example, has a support that does literally nothing. There's a Psy Machino with the same art that is legit good, but she's technically free to play, not a support rare recruit. Stuff like this Dagama, also basically useless. So, exception of course, but in general most of them are pretty worth owning. And in this video we're going to break down 10 in particular. We're actually going to start with the Barto himself because I don't own him. And I made a big deal out of him at reveal, and I did say we didn't know enough at the time. But now we know more, so let's look at him again. So Barto from Film Red, basically the main remaining Film Red unit to get. And his support can be put on all Straw Hat, which is a big reason why he's so good. And basic at level 5, when you use his special, you drastically reduce a portion of enemy's dealt damage that exceeds 5,000 for one turn. This is called a damage threshold, not the same as a damage reduction. I made a video talking about this before. And if you hit 2 perfects this turn, you apply minus 10% strength, sign, int resistance to all enemies the next turn. That might be the worst part of the unit, not that resistance is bad, like you just keep stacking it, but the fact that depending on order, like you might want to use another unit, that gives a perfect buff, but this support will block that. The main reason you use this Bardo is for that damage threshold he gives, and we know a bit more about it, and the news were good. It looks like this Bardo has the second best threshold in the game. The best one is a 100% threshold. With a 100% threshold, you take no damage above the specified amount. So in this case, you wouldn't take any damage after 5,000. But Barto has the second best one, which means you have probably a 97% damage reduction. So a bit of damage after 5,000 goes through, but you're able to stop most of it. And that means that I stand by what I said in my last video. This Barto is a must, basically. I don't often recommend the units really, but I'd almost recommend going to 10 for him. That will be probably a better value than doing 10 extra multis on a Super Sugo. But that's my opinion. Incredibly valuable unit, and as soon as I get him after New Year, because I will get him even if I have to do 10 multis, I will start showcasing what Barto is all about. So yeah, I have the other support Barto as a placeholder here. So I basically, these are the 10 units. I've vaguely divided them in. Here is a bit of a healing / damage reduction, and this is basically more utility focused. But of course, even if all support here heal or do damage reduction, that's not the main reason you use them. One that might be a bit unsurprising is Mistomps, because when you read his support, like supports Luffy, Sanjo, Pedro, Carrot, doesn't sound that special, and his support is only for himself basically. So if you're inflicted with paralysis or special reverse, you reduce only the own character's paralysis by 3 turns and only their own CD by 3 turns, and also you get a 75% damage reduction for the next turn. So while that might look niche, it actually turns out to be really crucial on a lot of teams, and Luffy and Sunny does have some of the best units in the game, and it does end up being used on stuff like Carrot and Wanda as well, which is also a really good unit. But let's take a unit like Gear 5 for example, 16 CD. But if you happen to get paralysis or special reavers, which Gear 5 does resist if you run the 6-star, you will just get a free -3 CD. That really helps speed it up. I've used Midstones for that. And anytime you get paralysis special reavers, you get a very big damage reduction, and that can just let you survive a turn. Like, it's not as good as the Barter damage reduction, but it's definitely good enough. So the main reason I put Midstones here is that I actually use him a lot more than a lot of the other support recruits. So I really miss not having him. Mr. Tree, one of the GOATs of course, can be put on every Driven and Free Spirit, so that's a big reason why he's so good, being able to be used for so many units. And you get a 3-turn, 50% damage reduction, and -2 CD for the supporter character. So this is either used just to speed it up, like -2 CD can make a lot of difference, like this makes and breaks some no-stall speedrun teams. But the damage reduction should not be ignored either. And some abilities like Zephyr for example requires you having a damage reduction, and here you get one for free for 2 stages. Brule also has a bit of more limited spread. Luffy, Nami, Chopper, Peckons, Carrot, Katakuri, but still sees a lot of use. And yeah, final stage you do heal. The supporter character gets -2 CD. Both of these are ways to use it. But the main reason you use this Brule is that you get a full board block orb medic for free final stage. No other support like it. And yeah, sometimes you're not even allowed to use orb changing support and you get full board of block. Brule just handles it. So I don't think I have to say how incredibly useful it is. Like, there's a big difference in your box if you have Brule or not. Finally, we have Vivi. That can be put on all of the OG Straw Hats up until Alabasta. And final stage, you get some utility removing damage vessel by 2 turns, which is really good. You also apply some resistance for free, so this is support you can just use for extra damage if you run a Strength, Quick or Dex team. And you also get a very good heal, so a bit better heal than the OG Vivi, but you mainly use this for utility or some extra damage. But considering the units you support, how common they are, Vivi ends up being used a lot. So continue with some more utility. We have Sabo, which I put on a lot of teams, and I know it frustrates people, but he's just so good. Can be put on Luffy and Ace, who both have a lot of good units. And he does so much. Final stage, remove 2 turns of the spear, 2 turns of special bind, 2 turns of death up. You even get easier perfects, like, yeah, you can just splash him on so many teams and make them work. It's basically a glue unit as a support, like he has a support that makes a lot of teams work that wouldn't otherwise. Ace, pretty similar to Sabo in making or breaking teams, can be put on Luffy, Marco and Whitebeard, so all 3 of them have a lot of good units. And when you use a special, you remove death up and damage reduction by 2 turns, and you apply a burn. It's not the best burn in the game, but you have the added benefit of potentially getting to resilience. Burn is a bit iffy with resilience. Enemies can do stuff before they die, but in a lot of cases it works the same as, say, poison or end of turn damage or something like that. But obviously just removing death up and damage reduction by 2 turns is insanely strong, especially when one of the supports is Luffy. Mihawk might be one of my most used. He's just way too good. I don't know how many times I sort my box by in/slasher or free spirit just to find a unit that I can use stage 3 or 4 to be useful, and then final stage just for Mihawk, because final stage you get end of turn damage for 1 turn, you set defense to 0, and you reduce CD by 2. Can be used for all of those, but usually just a way to bypass resilience or bypass death up, setting defense to 0. So incredibly valuable support, and can be put on a ton of units due to that condition. Next up we have Mr. One, which has a Very bad spread. It's just Robin, Mr. 2 and Mr. 0. So Crocodile and Bentham. And yeah, it's easy to forget this for Mr. 2, but I'm good at remembering this for Robin and Crocodile at least. But yeah, like come on, you should use damage reduction by 4 turns, paralysis by 4 turns, and you get the plus 0.7 chain boost. This is basically a special as a support. So usually having bad coverage, like not being put on many units, is a negative. But here, for once at least, they really made up for it by getting a legit extra special as support. Finally, we have the OG support carrot. The second support carrot is also good and could as well be on this list. And can put on Nami, Wanda and Chiffon, so mostly Nami, but can be put on Wanda or Chiffon, sadly not on Carrot and Wanda since this is Carrot. And yeah, you get a lot of base stats, and the main thing is that if you hit a perfect, you remove death fuck by 2 turns. And since this is a hitting perfect support, you can use this across several stages, and yeah, it's also a very good glue for teams. There's a lot of 1 turn of this type of support, but it's the only 2 turn one. So these are the 10 I recommend. There's a lot of more cool I put here, like Toko for example. The new support Momo, like there's a lot of them, but I thought I'd iron it out to 10. And I talked about it a bit before, but I might start doing like a YouTube membership thing where I do tier lists, because I'm not really interested in doing tier lists in general, but for people who really support me, I'd be willing to do that. So in that case, I might do like monthly tier list and special tier list like support or such. But yeah, with that, this is the end of the video. So, thanks for watching guys. See you next time.